He's okay.
What's that one for? Hey, Stormwater. Keep it all. Be glad. I'll take it. Yeah, be glad.
I guess we're ready to roll.
Ready?
Did we have agendas, or did we need to? We should have printed off and bring our own, I guess.
Oh, I have to get extra copies.
Somebody else needs one.
Who needs one? You need one?
You use agenda?
I have it on my phone.
Okay.
You have somebody else probably here right there. I'm not sure that.
Call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Barnes, Mr. Christensen,
Here.
Mr. Herman,
Here.
Mr. Manfredi,
Here.
Mr. Taylor,
Here.
Alderman Wall,
Here.
Mr. Clark.
Here. Okay. Adoption of the agenda. Ask for a motion to discuss or approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a question about the agenda, this current one. June. It seems. Is that all we have for June, just through the 12th? Because on most months it goes. There's pretty much a daily report. Reports here on the stormwater inspector notes. We just didn't get notes past the 12th. Page 19 seems to.
Yeah, stormwater inspector notes. That's typically on the construction side of things. It appears as though that is what was turned in. Yes.
So we got the reports. Yes. So it's a month behind. So we get the month-end reports the month in. So we got that in July. We haven't gotten August yet. Because August will be on in.
Okay.
That.
I second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, I need an approval for the June 10th, 2024 meeting minutes. Ask for a motion to discuss or to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the June 10th, 2024 Stormwater Advisory Board minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on to public comment. We have two individuals signed up to speak. Carl Mendes. I'm sorry if I said that incorrectly.
You did.
Okay. And you have 3 minutes, sir.
Okay, I was just curious, could I ask a question, what's being done with the city stormwater? I've talked to you before in front of our house, 101 Heritage, that the water runoff is, pretty intense and coming through my yard and flooding our garage. I don't have flooding in my living space, but I'm just curious what's being done around the city and, about the flooding. So that was my question.
Okay.
And our street as well.
Can we answer that? I guess we can answer that. You want to answer?
Well, part of it's in the report, isn't it? Some of the things we've been doing. He's asking what we've been doing around the city.
Yeah.
That could be part of the report, so if you have anything specific.
Yeah, under that particular moment in time, as you know, there were heavy rain events in that particular moment in time. We prioritized high folks that have gotten water in the living quarters of the homes. So your project is still on the list to be looked at. What I remember from your address is that there was a curb that maybe needed to be elevated, or the road needs to be milled and repaved to allow for the reveal on the curb to allow the water to stay in the street. So we haven't addressed that issue just yet, but it is something that we are looking into to get that done. But that's going to be either an internal project where we maybe have to come out and look at elevating the curb to keep that water flowing in the street, or it may be at the time when we pave that road that it gets milled and lowered and taken care of at that particular moment in time. Do you have? I'm sorry.
study.
Yeah, and we're also in the middle of, and I'll point that out on the presentation as well, but right now we're in a study from FEMA. We're applying for a grant to FEMA to study the entire city's watershed, to update what we're going to do and how we should address these issues. They're gonna study the entire city, the subbasins, how much water is flowing to different locations as opposed to what maps we've worked off before. So we're in that process, and yeah, I can get into the particulars of the cost of that and how that will look during the presentation side of things. But yes, we are taking steps to get a better picture of how water is flowing through the city.
It's not gonna be a fast process, for
I
sure.
didn't think it was.
No, we're steadily looking at it, and just, you know, you've gotta figure out, hey, what we've gotta do, then we gotta figure out funding, you know, if there's any funding to be had, you know, what can we get from FEMA, you know, so it's gonna be a long process, but.
I was curious that so much construction was allowed to happen, and I'm guessing that's from the previous administration.
Yeah, we've got things we've got to correct, and, you know, it's, you know, this is a list of, you know, what we've got to deal with. I mean, it's several pages deep, and, you know, like you said, we're trying to get the priorities out first, people who have flooded, their houses have actually flooded. So I think there's a dozen or so of those.
I mean, we just spent $14,000 to have done what we can on our property, but
Right.
I'm just curious about the street.
Yeah, so.
What's the estimated time, or when do we think that study's gonna start or be completed?
We don't have a good timeline on that right now.
Could
No,
be-
because it's, we're still in the application process. It needs to be taken in front of FEMA's, storm board, their evaluation board, and getting that over to them as quickly as possible. So the earliest that anything will happen with FEMA is December.
Okay.
That's the deadline on when I will turn that paperwork into them, and they'll review it at that particular time.
And it's just to get the mitigation plan.
The Covington Heights study is gonna take at least a month, it's undergoing right now, and it could be a year before we know anything from this study, so, it's just unfortunate, but, you know, we're not letting it go by the wayside.
That's for Winchester, Creekwood Drive, Louise Drive, that's what you're talking about, there's a study being
The
done?
whole Covington Heights subdivision, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that stretches out to Meadows, all the way North Palmer's, all through that subdivision.
Any other discussion on that? Okay, we have another gentleman here signed up to speak, Mr. Daniel Whited.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good job. Most people butcher that last name, so appreciate that. It's actually on the same topic. So I have a couple follow-up questions from the study, but first off, I want to acknowledge, I know you all are doing the best you can with the resources you have. Completely get that. I live on Autumnwood, and I'm actually Andrew's neighbor, so I got to see firsthand what he dealt with the night, or the morning of June 30th. What's impacting his property is also impacting the adjacent properties, whereas not only we have erosion, but I've lost 10 feet of property in the last 8 years. So Honey Run Creek is a major issue, and I know Dolly P., so I'm on the planning commission, and so is Miss Dolly. She went on public record last month, I believe it was, so I just wanted to go on public record as well, acknowledging these issues that we're having in our subdivision, seeing our, neighbors being run out of their homes. But the FEMA grant, I'm encouraged to hear, but I have a question on that. Is, by applying for that, is that going to update the flood insurance policies for everything that's within those areas? Because currently, Andrew is not required to have flood insurance. Neither am I or our neighbors. So, is that what this is going to do?
It's part of it. They're supposed to look at our areas to see if any additional floodplain should be added, because we only have one small area in the city currently as a floodplain. So yeah, that's part of it, to see if there's anything new that needs to be added to that.
Okay.
So that's what it is, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, that was just an extraordinary event, the last one. I mean, 4.5 inches in 45 minutes is just, it's unheard of. And unfortunately, y'all live on a creek, and anytime there's a creek involved, I've got a friend who lives out in the country and across plains, and they had never seen water anywhere near their barn. And it was 4 feet deep in their barn. So it's, you know, it's unprecedented stuff, and, you know, we don't know how we're gonna have to deal with it forward, but, you know.
Yeah, I know the culvert that's right by his house has been talked about many, many times on, is it even adequately built to handle the volume that comes through that, because it constantly gets stopped up.
That came from a FEMA grant too, from
That
the
would be it.
2010 flood, so yeah, that they recognized it, they resized it, and they obviously put a larger one in. Like I said, we're gonna have to kind of watch how the study goes to see what happens, but it was devastating to our city. I talk about this all the time again. We really thought we had a pretty good handle on our stormwater plan, and the way we just evolved over the last 7 years, and then we just couldn't believe what happened. It just worked out. So, you know, we're still looking at areas that need mitigation. We're still looking at areas that maybe they shouldn't have. All the new subdivisions built in the last 5 years, that we had no issues in any of those neighborhoods. Not that it's, they're transferring water to other places, it's just because the stormwater infrastructure they had to put in those neighborhoods were better than what they didn't do in the older neighborhoods. So we had some really nice infrastructure, we had some weaknesses in some of the new areas that were being developed, but we were on them pretty quick. Stop work orders we put out there. I think we're doing everything we possibly can, and then we've met with TEMA, and that's why I filled out the pre-app, and they accepted the pre-application, so that's why Isaiah's working on the full application right now. I'm not sure if it's in here, but I'm trying to, one area that we thought we had mitigated pretty good was off Calista Road. We built a pond there, but that overflowed. So now we're looking at purchasing additional property, which I'm almost completed that process, to basically buy another acre of land and add to that pond and make it even larger to accommodate the water that's coming into that area. So, Mr. Taylor here, he lives, I know where his house is, it's been flooded many times in the past. It's another one of those areas we need to look at. Can we mitigate that and not have anybody live there anymore? You know, and change that area. There's a few spots like that. All the new subdivisions, the requirements, how close they can be to the creeks, are expanded out. Some of the older subdivisions, they're right on them. They're right on them. They look really nice. You know, it's great to have that creek there, but it's also can be a real pain.
Potential danger.
Well, we certainly do appreciate y'all continue to keep this as part of our attention, because, you know, there's many needs in the cities, from potholes to roads that need to be repaved, and you don't want this to get set aside. It needs to be staying in the forefront.
I was just gonna add, I was out meeting with the developer today and ran into a TDEC, somebody from the state. They're out doing inspections, and that was my first time running into them, but they're constantly here kind of monitoring the city as well, which was encouraging to see. So
Appreciate it, thank you.
Y'all come in late. Would y'all like to say anything?
Yeah, couldn't find the building. No, we live on Tyree Springs, so we're out of White House.
Oh, okay.
But my concern is, where is the water coming from? You're talking about the new subdivisions and everything, and we haven't had flooding like this before. So,
If you can figure that out, let us know.
no,
Because
I'm hoping that you
Honey Run is, I've never seen that much on Honey Run. I've lived here almost 30 years. I've never seen some of the things I've seen. So,
well, I'm curious about what you're talking about with the ponds. Are you thinking of building retaining ponds, or diversion, or what are you thinking of?
go ahead and answer that one.
So currently, the pond that Mr. Herman was speaking of is on Calista Road. The house had flooded before my tenure here. It was purchased and it was torn down, and the city owns the property. There was a pond built in its place to mitigate the flooding for the other folks that live on Calista Road. We have entered into an agreement that is almost completed, as Mr. Herman mentioned, expanding that pond. So yes, to expand that particular area. What we have found out from TEMA and FEMA during these meetings is that they recommend that being a last resort in a lot of cases, but the option is still on the table to purchase homes and remove those homes and build a pond in those areas. But it is still an option, but they want us to get a really good study of the city so we can identify what is considered a floodplain, whether that has changed over the years and where we currently stand. And that's really the idea behind what we're doing.
Are you working just within the city limits, or do you have any contact with Hendersonville or any other areas? The water goes from White House to somewhere else.
Right, there's a flood hazard mitigation plan for the county. Sumner County has one. It's pretty intensive.
Okay.
And White House is part of the Sumner County plan, not the Robertson County plan, but Sumner. And so, yeah, they're looking at that as a whole.
The Corps engineers, do they have anything to do with the creeks?
The Corps does, yes. They have a portion of it. So
what
we
kind of, you know, after you come off the hill down through the woods and it flattens out, there's a sharp curve. We're just past that, Tyree Springs. But of course, there's a creek behind our houses.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it was like 4.5, 5 foot. It got like 20 feet from my house, but it almost touched hers, I guess, next to me. But you know, the creeks are just full of gravel where they wash, and where it used to be maybe 6 foot deep, now it's 3 foot deep. So when it, you know, starts pouring down, it don't take no time. It's out of the banks and headed towards you.
Unfortunately, natural erosion has changed our landscape tremendously, so, you know, it's, and that's what this study will help us determine, hopefully, you know, cross our fingers, so, you know, it's gonna be a lengthy process, but, you know, we're hoping that we get all the answers that we need out of it, so.
Yeah.
Kind of like roads, but in the sense that roads, so we have, you know, right of ways and we can go in there and pave roads, fill potholes and that, but we don't go through people's properties that we don't have easements and clean up those ditches. Like you said, if it was a 6 foot ditch, now it's a 3 foot ditch.
Yeah.
Really, it's the property owner's responsibility to keep that as a 6 foot ditch, but they don't. And so
Unless
they
it's a
don't.
blue line creek, correct? Unless it's blue line, then the property owner's not allowed in that creek, correct?
Well,
That's
that's
would
not
be-
true either.
They don't want
You
that's not
can't
necessarily
put
true either.
equipment inside the blue line. You can reach in and pull out limbs and
Right.
clean it out that way. You
They
just
don't
can't,
want you in
you
the
just can't
creek,
put your heavy equipment that's got oil and fuel
Yeah.
dumping
What
into
about
the
a
creek.
chainsaw?
and
Can you use a chainsaw on that creek?
I believe you probably can.
I believe it's possible. That would be something that would be better answered by TDEC, but
Yeah.
I know that because we're governed under an MS4 permit and TDEC rule, we are not allowed to do that without an ARAP, an aquatic resource alteration plan. And there's specific sorts of permitting that we have to maintain, or that we have to obtain before we can go into the creeks. And homeowners, I've never actually experienced it myself on my personal property because I don't have a creek on my property, but it would be a question from a homeowner's perspective to TDEC whether they are allowed to do that or not as a private citizen, as a private homeowner. That would be my recommendation on that, because we're governed differently, more strictly as my understanding.
And the Corps of Engineers, I called them and they said, you know, I said, I'd like someone to come out and just take a look at what's going on. And we don't have a department like that. But then, you know, they don't want you in the creek. They're up there. If you stir up the mud in the creek or whatever, they're over there like you're trying to move the creek or taking gravel out or whatever. But
I guess he could contact the county on that, couldn't he?
You could ask somebody, yeah. I would think so, since it was in the county, I would definitely
I've
ask.
got a mitigation plan, so I mean, county, you should be able to contact the county, you know.
the county.
Yeah, maybe they'll help you out on that, I don't know.
Yeah, see, it's,
So-
you know, everybody down through that, where the creek runs behind everybody's house. I mean, everyone would have to.
And it winds up in Jeff
Just
Brower's
one
fence,
wouldn't help any, you know.
then it winds up in Jeff Brower's fence, you know,
Yeah.
so.
They have a stormwater supervisor, Joe Phillips, and then they have the EMA director, Ken Wagner.
Yeah.
He's the one who put together the hazard mitigation plan, so.
And actually, see, just brought something up on his tablet here. It's what's it entitled?
It's Tennessee's Landowner's Guide to Stream Bank Protection and Stabilization. It's on the TDEC website. Just Googled Blue on Stream,
And that may be able to provide some guidance, and you know, if you'd like to provide your email address to us, I don't see any reason why we couldn't forward that over
Yeah.
to you.
I mean, the creek's probably 75 yards from my house, and it's within 20 feet.
Sure.
So, you know, it's spread out. Again, I got pictures and all that stuff.
Yeah. We were just so saturated at that time. I mean,
Yeah.
we got a third of our average rainfall in a 3-week period. We were already saturated, and then we get to 4.5 inches in 45 minutes, and now we're begging for rain. So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's,
But anytime it starts raining,
I'm still saying, the whole thing.
we need a week-long mist. That's what we need.
That's what I agree.
Yeah,
I'll go with the mist.
steady soaking rain, we don't have those
Right,
problems
right.
anymore. It's just beat the
It's just
shingles
crazy.
off.
Everything's just crazy. I mean, it's just been crazy. So it's and Isaiah and I talked, about how do we adjust our standards. You know, most things
Yeah.
are built on a 25, 30-year floodplain. You know,
Yeah.
and now you get these 20, 50, 100, 200, 500-year events. How do we adjust our plans for that?
We had 2 100-year events in spring.
Well, they considered the June, I think, a 2,000-year event.
Something like that, so, yeah, we can't build out the infrastructure.
Yeah, so how do you build infrastructure?
Couldn't build anything.
How do you build infrastructure with what's going on? So we've got that to deal with, and hopefully we'll get more guidance when the study's finished.
Well, this new study is gonna change those standards for us too, so now, if we're supposed to be to a 100-year flood standard, which is what I've been told in the past, is that a lot of the infrastructure was to a 100-year, and what we had was a 200-year and a 500-year and a 2,000-year within a couple of weeks of each other. This new study will take into account those, but then if we have all this infrastructure that's only good for what you just said, 25-year floodplain,
we got a lot of stuff that's 25,
that means we're gonna have to go through
Yeah.
and we're gonna have to go through and correct everything in the city
No,
to get it up to standard, or
No,
is that what we're looking at after the
that'd be
study's done?
impossible to do. That would
No,
Well, if the study says it, then we're just gonna ignore the study after it comes.
No, we won't ignore the study. It's just that the problem is it's you got going forward. We'll have to adjust our
But everything that's already in place is,
yeah. It's kind of like it's all
Screwed.
You know, it's. I don't know how we fixed a lot of it.
Exactly.
So, I don't know how we fixed a lot of it.
I guess kind of like now though, so if you look at everything that's being put in now, it's under the MS4 permitting rules, but the existing developments are not. Up until I think the 1990s when that was instated, was the MS4, that wasn't, regulated until the 90s, and then the early mid-2000s is when it's, started occurring in the city. And so, it's kind of like always playing catch up, it seems like, as the needle moves, so to speak, if I'm saying that correct.
With all the years that we've lived there, and then suddenly all these subdivisions are getting put in, so of course our thoughts go to, is that where it's coming from, so, because we don't know where the drainage goes.
And to give you a particular and a specific answer on that, I'd have to look back at the construction documents to see where all of those outfalls go, because I do know that Summerlin Phase 9, it actually goes behind Doris Farms and Willow Grove, behind Willow Grove and Doris Farms, and it actually runs downhill towards the high school. So as you're at the top of the hill, there are, if my memory serves me correctly, more of it is flowing back down towards the high school, away from that direction. So and I'm not saying that it isn't. I'm just saying, if my memory serves me correctly, after looking at construction documents and things like that, and I'd be happy to speak to you about that and review those construction documents and that sort of thing. I don't mind to do that in the least. But
we've got a lot of areas that it's not because of construction, new construction.
Mm-hmm.
It's old construction. It's been there for the years. And my neighborhood, Covenant Heights, it's not because of new construction. So things have just changed, and it could be we get a lot more water out of Red River. We could be getting, when the Cumberland River backs up, it's going to back up into every water source there is. So it could be caused by something at the dam, as far down as the dam. So things start backing up, it's got to go somewhere. So.
And another thing is that we have to keep in mind is, Mr. Taylor, to your point, as some of the things that we're experiencing and that we're trying to overcome is that some of the older subdivisions, they don't have an HOA, or the HOA, and I'm not pointing blame or anything like that, it's just what we're finding more and more is that internally in these developments, some of the ditches or the conveyances, they're stopped up or they've been silted in over 20 years. And since we weren't in MS4 until 2016. So a lot of times what you're seeing is you're seeing these developments, these older developments that have sedimentation or something like that, that we go in and we're like, oh my goodness, this is, the invert of this ditch is a foot higher than that pipe. And then at that time, we're having to be reactive, which we want to take more of a proactive approach, but those are the things that we're encountering, that we're trying to overcome, is that maintenance has been let go or not done, and some of that is the responsibility of HOAs, and if they're not doing that, then that is negatively impacting us. Or if there's an area that doesn't have an HOA, then it's kind of on an as-needed basis. But again, to what we've been saying up here is we hope to be able to have this study done, and that will help us better to identify and to be able to have a more proactive approach rather than being reactive. So really we feel that a lot is going to stem from this study. We think we're going to be a lot more capable and a lot more able to mitigate more of these issues moving forward.
But in the meantime, we're going to be working on a list of over 100 projects.
Yes, of course.
Trying to go through. We're not going to just sit and wait for the study to be done. We're taking proactive steps every day to try to improve our stormwater infrastructure.
Has the study started?
Not yet. We were only in the application process now. We were invited to apply, and so I'm hopeful that we'll get the grant. It's a $300,000 study, and the city responsibility would be a little over $30,000. State would pay a little over $30,000. The federal government pay the rest.
Okay. So we'll move on to reports. Ask for a motion to approve the reports.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to new business and discussion items. Current stormwater projects. So I'll go ahead and thank you, Derek. I'll go ahead and start the report. So Stormwater Advisory Board meeting, September 9th, 2024, City of White House Public Services Department, Stormwater Division. So during this report, we will cover our annual report update, public outreach, engineering study that is occurring, Apache Trail, box culvert project update, enforcement, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, I'll cover the FEMA grant. So the annual stormwater report was completed by Michael Hushin, our previous Assistant Director of Public Services. Our internal review is in progress currently. We will need to sign off on that after review takes place. That report will be submitted September 30th, and it is on schedule to be submitted by the deadline. If you'll look in the bottom left-hand corner there are minimum control measures that have been identified by TDEC through our permit, public education and outreach, which that's a form of, that's what we're doing here. That's what that is a form of, or this is a form of that, excuse me. Public involvement and participation, again, that's what you all are doing here, so we appreciate that. Help to educate, get conversations started, allow you to understand what steps we're taking. Illicit discharge detection and elimination. We have 2 inspectors that are constantly doing inspections throughout the City of White House. We're in constant conversation and communication with developers. Recently shut down 6 projects because of illicit discharges. So we're taking a really hard stance with them on those sorts of things. construction site runoff and pollution control, again, part of the shutdowns. Post-construction runoff and pollution control, so after the project is completed, we're making certain that we are not just kind of saying, hey, you're done, okay, it's over with. We're taking steps, always evolving, always getting better, and doing those sorts of things, and making sure that we keep an eye on that. Pollution prevention, good housekeeping for municipal facilities, so we have the responsibility as an MS4 holder that we also adhere to these same standards that we are enforcing. So in one way, we're the enforcing body, but in the other way, we are also subject to all of the rules and regulations as well. So public outreach, I first put up here Tree Day. We've entered the purchase order for the trees. A lot of people enjoy this, so that's why I put the 187 days until Tree Day. I know that's about 6 months away, but a lot of people enjoy that, so I wanted to make mention of that. The Urban 5K event, it's another form of public outreach, and it's all about stormwater and the effects of stormwater and how we can better treat stormwater and keep illicit discharges from happening. The city of White House participated in that, provided water to the runners and a vehicle for support during that, and you know, put our name out there to show that we're involved, and that's part of one of the requirements for our MS4 permit, that we're out in the public, kind of helping educate. So stormwater engineering study, Covington Heights, as we mentioned a few times, we are working with our current engineering firm to do the 6 bullet points on here. Delineate the drainage basin contributing to the problem area along Winchester Court. This is from our engineer. He has looked already, and there is one subbasin coming into the pipe on the north and another subbasin coming in through the pipe to the east. What he'll do during this study is determine the flows, runoff in the 2, 5, 10, 25, 50, and 100-year storm events in each basin. Assess the hydraulic carrying capacity of the existing pipes and ditches, which are shown in blue. If you can see that there, I believe it's large enough on the screen. Provide alternatives in each of the ditch pipe sections shown in blue for the city to determine what carrying capacity is appropriate for stormwater improvements in each section. The report includes, it will include a PDF format of the project, and the cost for this was $4,200.
And who was doing that? Who was doing that study?
CSR Engineering.
Okay. And how many homes were affected in this area by storm water issues?
I believe
7 flooded?
7 houses flooded.
Yeah. I thought it was 9, but yeah.
It might have been 9.
It must have been 7 to 9.
And those were all just in this time frame that we were talking about in between May and.
Yeah, they flooded 3 times between May and June.
Okay.
Those houses did. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. So they, I thought they were going to expand that beyond 100 years. We need to look at 100 on that. Yes.
I'll check into that. Okay. Another stormwater engineering study that's being conducted right now is, as we mentioned earlier, the Callista Road Retention Pond expansion. Callista Pond expansion is to be bid out. The budget used was out of our land acquisition money within the stormwater budget. The acreage purchased, if it goes through, is 0.867 acres, cost $100,600. The land was $100,600 for the shed to be moved out of the area that needs to be excavated for the expansion of the pond.
So 3 houses or 6 houses on been flooded on that one? 4. Okay. Yeah. It was more before the pond was put in. The first pond.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
2010 flood is pretty hard.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay. So the Apache Trail box culvert project, as some of you may know, we were on a 6-month hold on that project due to the streamside salamander in that particular area from December to May. And so finally, after the lifting of that stop work order, essentially, if you will, or that hiatus from the project, the 2 final box culvert sections were installed at the beginning of June. If you'll see that kind of rock-looking blanket, that's actually considered Fleximat. That reduces erosion. Whenever water is coming through that area, we put that on the bank sides to eliminate that erosion, stop that erosion. It's a newer product. We've used it for the past 2.5 to 3 years. We've seen really good results with it, so we put that in on this particular project. Upstream of this, that's the top right-hand corner picture there. That stream had really deposited a lot of material, sediment, dirt, and debris in that kind of right-hand corner of the head wall, kind of the concrete wall there. So we had excavated that to allow for more capacity of water to flow into that area and to escape and try to prevent flooding upstream and allow a better flow of water downstream. In order to complete this project, sidewalk and curbing repairs need to be done. That's going to be done prior to paving, and our anticipated completion date of that is October 1st of this year.
And I'm sure you'll be glad when it's done.
Yeah, that was part of 3 separate box culvert projects that were installed. Hobbs Drive, Villages Court, and Apache Trail. The other 2 projects did not have the limitations of the streamside salamander. The Villages Court side did, but they were able to complete it in the time frame allowed. Hobbs Drive was not held up by that. Some of the enforcement actions that we've taken, Collins Crossing Pond, that's something that a lot of us here know about. So the Callista Pond, the Collins Crossing Pond was not built to capacity. So we have required that the contractor and developer come back in and excavate that back out to the proper depth to hold back the appropriate amount of water. We believe, we've had some conversations with Safe Harbor, in order to maintain that pond and the ditch line in the rear of the property, they're asking that the citizens from Collins Crossings, because there's not an HOA that is set up there right now, that they will go into the Jackson Farms HOA, pay their fees that will allow Jackson Farms to maintain these ponds.
So is Safe Harbor going in now and doing the work?
No, the previous developer and contractor that took care of that project, that built those pads and installed the utilities and things, are the ones that were responsible to go back in and dig that pond out. The city took a pretty hard stance on that we would not allow it to move forward until these ponds were completed. Callista Farms, there was a dust complaint received that was negatively impacting neighbors in the Orchard Park subdivision. They were placed on a brief stop work order until they mitigated that issue. They have now paved that area, and again, I stated that it was shut down for those specific operations. The mill, there was an issue over there with an illicit discharge and water remaining in that area to convey out of a piece of stormwater infrastructure for longer than the allowable time. So we've asked that an anti-seep collar be installed, which has worked. There are still some minor issues that we need to address with the developer out there. Number 57 stone was utilized under the outfall pipe. We asked that be removed, placed them on a stop work order. They removed that, put in proper compacted red dirt, and put it back in place and stopped that seepage. We asked for more stabilization within the pond, and we will continue to monitor this so that there isn't any further issues. So the FEMA grant, I hope that's large enough. Put a lot of stuff on this one page. When the meeting was had with TEMA, it was recommended that an overall study of the city of White House be conducted. Again, we mentioned that they told us that so that we can better determine whether there's any floodplains that exist that didn't previously exist on our current map, and how we can move forward and what options we have. The study will update current subbasins, drainage areas, and watersheds. Total cost is $303,500. Excuse me. As Mr. Herman mentioned earlier, the cost to the city would be $37,937.50, which is 12.5% of the total if we are awarded this grant.
Is there a chance we won't be awarded it?
I don't know that answer at this particular moment in time. That it has to go to our contact at TEMA initially, and he has to review it, and then he has to take it to a board in December for another review, a further review.
Okay, gotcha.
I have a question. My next door neighbor tried to get FEMA grant because her house actually flooded. Does this have to be declared a disaster area in order to get help, or is this different because it's a city?
Yeah, the county normally would make that disaster claim. They've done it for others, but I didn't see anything specifically come out for this area on this last one.
And that concludes my presentation. We'll move on to other business. Ordinance amendment recommendation. When you put that in there, is that the current ordinance that I'm asking to have changed?
No, this has to do with the board members.
Oh.
Specifically, the finance director asked to be removed from the board, and thought we should add the city engineer.
Oh, okay.
So we're just basically swapping the two names out. So I have to get a recommendation from this board and take it to the board, mayor, alderman for 2 readings and a public hearing.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to ask for a motion that the finance director be removed from this board and the city engineer be placed on this board. I'm going to ask for a motion.
I made the recommendation. You go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, I'll make the motion since I made the recommendation to the board. So.
Okay.
And
Second.
I think Teresa had a second.
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All opposed? Any opposed? Sorry.
Before you adjourn, I was gonna make a comment.
No. Okay.
We had a motion.
You already did.
Since we're on other business, now I wanted to recognize Ms. Chloe Williams. She's a student at White House High, and she is writing for a scholarship. She's doing a scholarship essay on this very topic of what we talked about. Her topic was how commercial developments impact the citizens, and she was looking at negative outcomes on how development impacts our community. And so I thought it was just great. She reached out Thursday, and I wish I could share like a couple of the letters that she has emailed. It seems like they're coming from like my colleague of how well her stuff is. So just wanted to recognize her for the work she's doing.
Okay. And if that's it, we are adjourned.